Hey everybody, we are on take two. I just got off the phone with my dad, so he's trying to log on. First world problems, right? This is identical to some of the issues I had last night, trying to make sure that we could get on the Wi-Fi, and it was a nightmare. We're definitely having a data overload experience. So directly after this, I will be heading straight to the cell phone store, and I'll be picking up some additional equipment to make sure that we can continue our discussions and uploading our videos, because I'm definitely behind because of the struggles. All right, it looks like he's gotten on. We're going to go ahead and add him in, and we're just going to give it a few seconds as it's adding. In the meantime, I'll go ahead and update everyone. We are in day 4. We are between Charleston and Columbia and making a lot of headway. Hello, Dad.
Hello.
Welcome. I like the green.
Yeah, I thought I'd change it up. It's been red and blue, so green seemed like a good color today.
Yes. No, green is a great color. And how's everything with you?
Doing all right. Mare's a little down down a little bit, so this is kind of a trying to make decisions about this weekend. So that's really where we're at. So, but
yeah. So for everybody watching, my daughter is graduating from high school this week. And so we'll all be with her. And so my dad and his wife are trying to make it there, but she's been having some issues. So we're standing by to see if you all will be able to make it. If you're not, we know you'll be there in spirit.
absolutely, absolutely. But we're trying very hard and doing all we can. So that's where we're at right now today. I was just we're going to the doctor one more time today, so we'll see what we can get.
All right. Well, good.
Good. So.
Good.
So this is a big week.
This is a big week. We have gotten on the road. We've already run into a number of problems. Certainly, I think we were 2 hours, maybe an hour and a half in, and Team JJ number 2 vehicle busted a tire. Ended up on the side of the road immediately. Some significant damage was done. So we had to really kind of scramble right away. And we're still trying to figure out how to get that repaired, because our schedule is so tight and so long.
Right.
that it's challenging. We've also run into some issues with Wi-Fi connectivity and data overload.
Okay.
We did a lot of research ahead of time, and certainly, we actually are in pretty darn good shape in organizing all of this. But at the same time, we even still, I think, went over capacity. So I'm heading to the store immediately following this to increase our equipment.
Okay.
Because there's definitely more that we're going to need,
right.
for sure, to keep going. Yeah, and I would say one more thing we've learned is all the different types of places you can stop. So tonight we will actually be staying at a vineyard. There are a number of vineyards around the country that allow you to stay for free.
Okay.
As long as you have your own equipment, and we certainly do. So we're equipped to do that. So we'll be, as they say, boondocking it tonight, which will be great. In good news, we are having so much success in booking interviews, talks, and connections that I'm actually struggling to figure out how we're going to time it all. So we are definitely creating buzz. Also, although we've really I wouldn't say even hardly advertise the coffee talks each morning. Every single morning we've had people sit and talk with us, take pictures, and people are signing the bus. They're stopping us on the side. They're asking questions. And, we're really getting a lot of positive feedback. And I'm certainly seeing that in people starting to donate as well. So really a lot of good news all the way around. And hello to everybody who has signed on.
Yeah, I think that's the whole part. I mean, you brought it up even now while we were up there on Thursday, that we're getting a lot more views even after the fact on our discussions. And so I'm seeing that. We've had a lot of enthusiasm. This morning, Mary and I have been working diligently to get the article out to everybody we know, and forwarding everything we possibly can, and just kind of, triggering some things. And we've gotten some, even this morning early, gotten some really good things coming back. I thought, I've been texting, I've been saying, everybody needs to read, quote, Timothy Leary's comment. That's hilarious. I thought it was really great, especially because I'm certain there's a lot of people that don't even know much about Timothy Leary. So the fact is, coming from my generation, that's a real chuckle, okay, about being nuts. I thought it was a great comment. So if anybody's out there and they want to have a good taste of a good evaluation, but yet it's got some good fun in it too. It's a good comment, so everybody should check out the comment at the bottom of the article. It's really unique, so it's a good one. So, well, good.
Yeah,
Sad to hear
it's
about the
interesting.
tire problem.
I'm
I'm sorry to hear about the
yeah.
tire problem. I hope the damage is not significant enough to prevent some kind of movement. Is it, or is that possible?
We'll have to wait and see. But as we often say in military, duct tape fixes everything.
Right.
And so there were some tarps and duct tape and nails and screws. And
right.
We actually had some former military folks that came over and helped in one of the parks. And
okay.
They were able to kind of fasten it together. So it was great.
Is this Rob's?
It's a true community effort.
This is Rob's vehicle, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Mine is okay.
Okay.
But his took a hit. And this is what happens, right?
Right.
You go out, you figure things out, and
right. Move on.
Yeah, you have to be inventive, you have to be prepared, and you have to be able to navigate.
Right.
We've been able to do that, and where others have been able to help, they've just jumped right in. So it's been great.
Well, that's even the most encouraging. You're really getting a taste of what everybody's out there and what's going on. So
Yes.
I think it seemed like things might be a little slow, but I loved your analogy about being the tortoise and the hare, and the fact is, I think what you're building right now is what you really saw in your future, and that's why you think a lot less linear than I do, because I'm a pretty linear thinker. And you're getting a snapshot of what's going to, and that momentum, I think, is just going to continue to grow and stuff. And so we'll see how that goes. We didn't really choose this.
Then we're going to need more volunteers.
Yes.
Because I'm running as fast as I can already. So my strategist for social media, she says, next time you're online, tell people I need help with social media. I need more volunteers. So if you're interested, definitely let me know. We do have people that are reaching out, and
Good.
we do have a structure in place. So if anyone is interested or willing, definitely let us know, and especially if you have any particular media experience.
Okay, great. I think there's
volunteers welcome.
Yes. Even on my side, I've been looking into better microphones and everything else like that, so I just don't sound like I'm in a cave somewhere, just yakking. So, been looking into that, but anything you can get is better than. Where are you at right now?
We are between Charleston and Columbia, South Carolina.
Okay.
And today we are heading to the South Carolina Military Museum, and we have an interview there. So we'll be looking into that. Yeah, I think that'll be really great. I'm looking forward to it.
Good. We didn't really put out a subject this morning that we were going to discuss. So, do you have one in particular you'd like to shoot at today, or do you want me to pick one?
That is your job, Dad.
Well, that's what I thought. I've been a little busy, so I apologize for my lack of cooperation on that issue. I wanted to kind of head into the education side that you'd laid out in your book, and some of the challenges that are going forward in education, because I think it ties into a lot of different things on how you want to approach the entire preparing the country to be a ready nation. And I think education, obviously, you stated that in our the initial kickoff, that education was very high on the list of priorities. So why don't you go through kind of the first steps and what you kind of visualize and how you'd like to see some of that going on?
Sure. So one of the things that we keep talking about are what are the real major issues that we're facing. And I tend to categorize them in three ways: digitization, automation, globalization. And at the root of all of those is education, because we have to be prepared for the 21st century. We're already here and we're already behind. So what the education system was set up for initially is what we call the industrial age. So the goal was to create a standard and make sure that all Americans were educated to that standard. And if you went above it, great, but the real goal was to ensure that we had that standard process. Now we're in a place where diversity of thought, diversity of background, diversity of experience, and diversity of skills and knowledge matter substantially because we're trying to optimize, right? And so, in order to be globally competitive, to be capable in a world of automation, and to be able to navigate the digital space, we have to have different skills. And we have to capitalize on everybody's different interests and abilities. So that means education actually has to change quite a bit, but it's not in. This is not at the level of trying to tell teachers how to teach or how to change monetary structures. When we talk about national strategies for education, what we're really talking about is looking across the lifetime. So learning needs to be lifelong. We're talking about looking at national infrastructure to support lifelong learning. So that means looking at human resources and looking at how people are credited when they have learned something. Maybe they don't learn it in a classroom. Maybe they learn it while working on a farm, or maybe they learn something while climbing a mountain. These skills all matter. They don't have to just be in a formal setting. And then 3, we need to make sure that we are helping people to be focused on those things they're interested in, right? So we call it individualization. So we need to do lifelong, needs to be real world focused, and it needs to be individualized. And that seems simple because it's in 3 words, but it's incredibly complex to work out across the national stage.
How do you see business accepting some of these changes going forward? Because at the root, it's going to be business is either going to accept or not, and want to continue to accept that whole deal. How do you plan on trying to convey that message down, to that level, down into business?
Right. So I actually think the direction is the opposite. It is not the government's job to convince businesses to accept a new way of thinking. It is the government's job to recognize that businesses are saying we need to be thinking differently. So this actually has not come from government to businesses. In fact, the businesses are already organizing to make this structure happen. Specifically, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation is taking an active role in making this happen. Specifically, the L3 work, this is innovation work. So if you want to Google it, it's L3 Innovation. This is a huge number of businesses that are banding together to say, basically, in order for us to be globally competitive and maximize our workforce, we have to look at whole people, right? We can't just look at formal degrees. We need to know, are they socially skilled? Are they emotionally capable and adept? Are they able to do all the things that we don't necessarily typically measure in school? Sure, you need to be able to do math. You also need to be able to hold a conversation. You also need to be able to plan. You also need to be able to manage your life and work, right? So there's all of these other pieces, and the businesses are recognizing that we're not helping them to be able to pick the workers who have those skills. Attitude. I mean, attitude's a big one, right? When do we measure attitude in school? So the businesses are actually coming to us, not us going to them. So I don't think there's a convincing that has to be done. What does have to be done is a facilitation of, okay, if business needs this and it's in the nation's best interest to meet that goal, how do we help at the government level facilitate all the groups affected to ensure that our people are ready for jobs of the future, that our economy is stable, and that we are able to be globally competitive?
How do you think you can convey that message to the opposite side, to the young youth coming up through, school and that? Because I think if the message is lost at that level, it'll be lost even going forward all the way up to business. How do you think we can, get the kids You know, because they're going to have some tough decisions going forward here in the near future and certainly in the distant future. But their lives are changing considerably different than what certainly mine did. Mine were, you know, we were a lot of cradle to grave job, you know, type activity, and people depended on that and they looked to it. And I mean, you brought up there was a construction worker I believe you met with, and you had an interesting conversation there. I, I'd like to know how that message is going to get down to them so that we feel, so that they, when they get to that business or business is asking the questions that you just said, how's that going to happen?
Yeah, so again, I think it's the same thing. I don't think we have to convince people because number one, they want jobs. So they recognize they need to have the skills that get them hired. So I think that's one right off the bat, just natural segue. But the second thing is that this next generation is very, very focused on experience and on the, what's the word I would use? It's kind of the worth of everything that they do, right? They don't press the trust button in the same way your generation did. People probably said, you're going to do this because I said so. This generation says, why? And so I think the real world focused piece isn't something that has to be sold, because when the why is because you want a job in this area or because you need to understand this to do the next task, it's a natural segue. I think that it's also easy to understand, to individualize. This next generation is very used to moving at their own pace and having a lot of control in their decisions. So again, I don't think that part is going to have to be sold. The last piece, the lifelong learning piece, that can always be a question. But again, if jobs are going to change, as Harvard University tells us, 3 to 6 careers are going to be the focus going forward and the norm. Well, then automation is just naturally going to say, this job exists today, but it won't tomorrow. What are you going to do next? So I think the natural consequences will just lend itself to this working. These are not my ideas to convince anyone of. It's just a recognition that we have problems in front of us and we have people trying to solve them, and their natural inertia will happen.
Okay. I always, when I was in business and human resources and everything, you know, one of the things that I always confronted was, you know, I did confront the why, and I made it my business to try to answer the why. However,
Right.
there's a lot of jobs and skill sets that are kind of mundane in their execution, and you know, I hope earlier on in a person's education we can kind of track them, and I think you and I have discussed that you're not going to pigeonhole anybody. You know, like the only place to go is college, or the only place to be is, you know, some executive in a glass office somewhere. That there's value. I think that's the main thing, is create value in what they do and in themselves. Because if you don't, I mean, I always used to have to motivate my janitors by saying, take pride in what you do because it looks better today than it did when you got here. So, because it changes immediately after you leave, and you come back and you're confronted with the same thing. But it was always about, that's the pride that we take in ourselves and the pride in taking the work to perform. So I hope people are listening in that direction, because pride is, I'll just say from the view from our generation, we see that this generation, or a couple of generations down, seem to feel that pride is not a large part of the psyche of everybody. It's more, you know, what we can do for less or whatever. And is that true? I don't see that as being true, but that's kind of that little part that people see and view, at least for my generation. You know, you earn it, you earn what you get, and you know, we have to move on. I'm babbling a little bit, so I'll let you talk. I'm always told both of us sit here and go, you know, to let the other one speak. So, if you got a further comment,
Yeah, well,
I'd love to.
I think point of pride and value matter significantly, right? And so I actually think that as we become better at recognizing and appreciating differences in people, we will naturally also see improved understanding and appreciation for the value of each person. When we're trying to standardize everyone, when we're trying to make everybody the same, then we're really trying to put the old metaphor of pushing a round peg into a square hole, or vice versa. And of course, it doesn't work for a variety of reasons, but one of them is because you recognize, even if it's not stated, I'm just doing this because somebody needs to do it. It's not because I'm particularly useful. It's simply because we just need a warm body. And as we get into automation, that will become more pronounced, because many of those mundane jobs will be replaced with automated either robots or processes. So we need to make sure that we are recognizing each person and their individual contribution, and recognizing that value. If we don't, we will see continual rise in depression and anxiety rates. We will see continual rise in concerns and frustrations in people. We will see continuous rise in divide between the haves and the have-nots. We will see continuous rise in trying to regulate. And so it is very necessary to focus on this piece because it has a ripple effect that can be very impactful long term.
Okay, agreed. 100%. 100%. Let's go on to a little bit different subject on the education side. That
yep.
I can see maybe something's happening that you needed to focus on. The actual systems that schools are using today versus what you'd like to see for the future, and how they identify everybody and get them motivated through what they find is interesting, what they find is a path for them to travel. I know that I used to talk to people, what's your interest? I mean, what do you like to do? If you like to drive trucks, well, then we'll go, you start to need to look at trucks. If you like to read books, let's get you thinking about type of bookstore, library, or whatever, and work in that field. If you like sports, go to the sports side. Take the interest that you have most in travel. So I don't know if that plays into what your thinking is, and how they look at that.
Yeah, so I would say a couple of things. Number one, I think we need to do a better job empowering our teachers. Teachers know what kids need, but they are regulated so substantially that they've gotten to a point, almost, not in all states, but in some states, where they're basically scripted. And in some cases, they literally are reading scripts. And I mean, it just goes without saying, this is not the best way to do things. I understand where it came from. I do know why they got there, because they really wanted to standardize and ensure that every teacher is meeting a certain mark. But the point at which you're standardizing so far that you're actually ensuring nobody is excelling, that's when we've hit a problem state. So when we talk to teachers, I think that's a big one that they often say is, let me do my job. Very, very short and simple, and I'm a big advocate for that. They've been trained. Let's empower them and unleash them to do the brilliant work that they already know how to do. So reduce constraints. The second one is actually quite similar, but for students. We do a lot of standardized testing for exactly the same reason we standardize teachers, and that is to ensure that everybody's meeting a certain mark. But once we get to a certain age, roughly around 8th grade, individualization starts to really take over, and spending all our time doing assessments that are focused on that standardization of children actually can work against kids. There are a whole lot of new assessment techniques, like stealth assessment, where we can actually capture data in real time and not interrupt flow, and not use it to be punitive, not use it to tell students what they can't do, but instead say, okay, here's where you are and here's what you need to learn next. called an asset model. It's about being additive. And there's no reason that everybody has to learn everything all at the same time. And we know that. Teachers know that. I would say the third thing that really needs to occur is that we need to be encouraging explicit support in social, emotional, and physical development, as well as cognitive. So it's great. We need people to be thinking. We need people to be doing the basics, right? Learn English and math and social studies and science, et cetera, et cetera. We know all of the cognitive pieces. But it is also important that people are able to socialize, that they are emotionally able to regulate themselves, and that they are physically healthy. These are important skills for the future, and our young people are not getting taught them. Our teachers are talking about it significantly, and so we really need to empower them and support them, and that goes through policy changes. So those are really some three big ones. But what do I imagine a school looking like in the future? I borrow a lot from our friends overseas in the Nordic region. A lot more project-based education, a lot more individualization, a lot more, like you said, what are you interested in? We can learn math by hanging pictures on a wall. We can learn math by assessing how fast cars go around a track. We can assess math by talking about building sets on a theater. I mean, there's so many ways to do it. So what resonates with you? And that's where we need to focus. That's where we're going to have the biggest impact.
It's been kind of one of the things that when you bring this up, and one of the things that we've been familiar with in our area down here is the Easter Seals group, and how they individualize their training for the folks that they have in their schools and stuff. It's quite unique. Everything is individualized. I mean, they know that their kids perform at different rates. They know that some progress faster, some progress much slower, have learning disabilities. They don't. So they have learned through their experience to really pour their hearts into learning how to acknowledge what they do well, what they, how to improve what they don't do as well, and how they, create a lot of pride in their work and they do. It's really fun to watch them. Our Easter Seals group here is one of the benchmarks around the nation, so we're really quite proud of them. But the fact is not having been around that group in the past and now seeing some of the results and how they work with them, it's incredible. And I think some of those same skill sets are what you're talking about, need to be employed, and the teachers in the classroom need to be allowed to utilize that. 'Cause I can remember how I think everybody in the class, you have 26 kids or whatever, there's 26 different ways of how they process and learn things. I mean, we all did it differently. We tried to get through and then beat the system somehow.
Yes, no, I completely agree. It's just a challenge if a teacher has to do 26 different methods. So I might suggest that teachers may not want to go quite that far, but yes, there are certainly ways that we can make that happen. And I want to respond to Kathy's comment that she posted. I totally agree. 2 points. What she said there is that she was saying that kids should get credit for job experience. Some school systems do. It depends on the state. When I was growing up, we certainly did. It was called on-the-job training, or OJT, and it was worth up to 3 credits. So some of the schools are doing that. That said, what I'm interested in is what you learn during that job experience. You learn to be either, a service member, or to follow directions, or to lead a project, or to investigate, or to show up to work on time. There's a variety of things that you learn. What we were developing inside the government before I left was the ability to actually credit those skills that you learn. And then those skills are what translate to either the military, to colleges, or to tech schools, or to additional jobs, saying not just that I did this work for 2 years or a year or whatever, but these are the skills I attained, and this is the level that I attained those skills. It allows for clarity on what each person is capable of and what their particular specialties are, regardless of the job they're working. So So thank you for the comment, and I completely agree. And on that note, Dad, we have to close out.
We do.
Have to get on the road to keep moving. Yes.
Wow, this was a fast half hour.
Yes, that's actually what I was looking at. I was trying to get the time, because I don't get the time on my phone when I am on live. So thank you so much, and I love the questions, and keep them coming. I hope that we will see you at the end of the week.
I do too.
Give my best to Mary. Yes, and we will keep posting our topics going forward. I will get better at it as soon as I get my new equipment.
Well, and I'll be better at it too, with a little less stress in my life at this point. So, you guys, good luck. I hope the tire thing gets fixed up and everything goes well. And, and just keep it up, because I think the momentum is gaining now. I think the wheel is spinning faster and faster all the time. So. All right, dear.
It is. We just need more wheels.
Yes.
Thanks, Dad. See you soon.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.